I thought losing my job at nearly 70 was the worst thing that could happen to me. But then my own son, the child I'd raised and sacrificed everything for, pushed me out of my bedroom and shoved me into a cold garage corner like discarded junk. They thought I was broke, worthless, with nothing left but some old clothes. They didn't know the house deed still bore my name, and I knew exactly how I was going to use it. My name is Elaine Porter, and at 68 years old, I never imagined I'd be starting over from nothing. The pink slip came on a dreary Tuesday morning in March, delivered by HR with all the warmth of a tax audit. 25 years as an administrative assistant at Brennan & Associates law firm, and they decided I was redundant. The young woman who handed me the termination papers couldn't even look me in the eye. I drove home in a daze, my hands trembling on the steering wheel of my 10-year-old Honda. The house I'd lived in for 32 years looked different somehow, like it knew I was no longer the capable woman who'd left for work that morning. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes, rehearsing how I'd tell Michael. When I finally walked through the front door, my son was in the living room with his wife Samantha, both glued to their phones. The smell of Samantha's vanilla candles couldn't mask the tension that seemed to live in our walls these days. "Michael, I need to talk to you," I said, setting my cardboard box of office belongings on the hall table. He glanced up briefly. "Can it wait, Mom? Sam and I are looking at preschools for Emma. I lost my job today." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. Samantha's perfectly manicured fingers stopped scrolling. Michael's jaw tightened in that way I recognized from when he was a teenager caught breaking curfew. "Well," Samantha said, her voice sharp as winter wind, "that changes things." Michael set his phone down slowly. "How much severance?" 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Samantha's laugh was bitter. "After 25 years? Did you even try to negotiate?" I wanted to explain that I'd been too shocked, too humiliated to argue, but the words stuck in my throat like dry bread. "We need to talk about the living arrangements," Michael said, not meeting my eyes. "Emma's getting bigger. She needs her own room." "She has her own room," I said, confused. "A proper room. Mom, not that converted office. She needs the guest room." "The guest room. My room. The one I'd moved into 5 years ago when Michael lost his job and begged me to let them move in temporarily. The room where I kept my mother's antique dresser and the quilt my grandmother made. Where would I sleep?" Samantha and Michael exchanged a look I'd seen too many times before, the one that said they'd already discussed this, planned it out like a business transaction. "The garage has that finished corner," Samantha said, examining her nails. "With the old futon and the space heater, it's practically a studio apartment." The garage, where we stored Christmas decorations and old paint cans, where the concrete floor stayed cold even in summer and the single bulb cast shadows that made everything look abandoned. "It's just temporary," Michael added quickly, "until you find another job." I watched my son's face, searching for the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, but all I saw was a stranger in a polo shirt, avoiding my gaze while his wife calculated how quickly they could box up my life. That night, they didn't wait for my answer. While I sat at the kitchen table, updating my resume on an ancient laptop, I heard them upstairs, moving furniture. Emma's giggles echoed through the ceiling as they transformed my sanctuary into her princess palace. By 10:30 p.m., Michael appeared with a dolly and cardboard boxes. "We'll help you move your things," he said, as if he were doing me a favor. I carried my clothes in garbage bags, my dignity folding smaller with each trip. The garage corner they designated for me was 8 by 10 feet, bordered by metal shelving units full of forgotten junk. The fluorescent light buzzed and flickered, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The futon sagged in the middle, and the space heater rattled like it was gasping for air. "See? Cozy," Samantha said, not even trying to hide her satisfaction. "And you'll have privacy out here." Privacy, as if being exiled from my own home was a luxury. After they left, I sat on the futon and listened to the house settling above me. Through the thin ceiling, I could hear them preparing for bed in the master bedroom, the one that used to be mine before I gave it up for them. The water pipes groaned when they ran the shower. Emma's feet pattered down the hall to her new, bigger room. I pulled my mother's quilt around my shoulders, breathing in the musty garage air that mixed with motor oil and old grass clippings. At 68, after decades of hard work and sacrifice, I was sleeping in a garage like unwanted furniture. But as I lay there in the dark, listening to the suburban sounds of the night, something hard and cold crystallized in my chest. They thought they'd won. They thought I was just a broke old woman with nowhere to go. They had no idea what papers I kept in my safety deposit box. No idea that this house, every beam, every brick, every carefully maintained inch of it, was still legally mine. The days blurred together in that garage. I'd wake at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of the automatic door opener groaning as Michael left for work. The concrete floor sent ice through my bones as I shuffled to the small bathroom they generously allowed me to use, the one with the leaking faucet and perpetually running toilet. My new routine was mapped out by Samantha within the first week. Breakfast had to be cleaned up before Emma woke at 7. Laundry sorted by color and fabric type. Floors mopped with the expensive organic cleaner she insisted on. Grocery shopping with her credit card. But heaven forbid I buy name-brand cereal or the good coffee I'd drunk for 40 years. "Elaine, the receipt shows you bought strawberries," she said one afternoon, holding the paper slip like evidence in a court case. "They weren't on the list. They were on sale. Emma loves strawberries. Emma has allergies. We've discussed this." She hadn't, but I'd learned not to argue. "And this coffee? $7? The store brand is $3. I wanted to scream that I'd worked since I was 16, that I'd paid off this mortgage while she was still in high school. Instead, I nodded and made a mental note to hide the good coffee in the garage behind the paint cans. The childcare was the worst part. Not Emma, she was still sweet at 4, still ran to hug Grandma Laney when I picked her up from preschool. But Samantha had installed cameras in the main rooms, and she watched the feeds from her phone at work. "You let her have 2 cookies," she'd text. "1 is the limit." TV time ended 3 minutes late. "Why did you take her to the park? That wasn't on the schedule." I became a ghost in my own home, tiptoeing through rooms I'd decorated, cooking in the kitchen where I'd taught Michael to make pancakes. At night, exiled to the garage, I'd wrap myself in blankets and listen to them living their lives above me. The dinner parties where Samantha's laugh tinkled like broken glass. The movie nights in the living room I'd painted sage green. The bedtime stories in what used to be my room. It was a Thursday night, 3 weeks into my new existence, when I heard the conversation that changed everything. I'd gone inside to get water. My mini fridge in the garage had broken. And naturally, fixing it wasn't a priority. Their voices carried down from the master bedroom through the heating vent. "She's becoming a burden," Samantha said. "My mother warned me about this. Take in an elderly parent and they never leave." "She's not elderly," Michael protested weakly. "She's only 68. And unemployed and broke. Face it, honey. Your mother is going to be living in our garage forever unless we do something." "What do you suggest?" "Well, for starters, we need to make this house officially ours. She's obviously not mentally capable of managing property anymore. I talked to my cousin, the one who's a paralegal. He says if she's showing signs of decline, we could petition." "Sam, that's extreme." "Is it? She forgot to pick up Emma last Tuesday." I hadn't forgotten. Samantha had changed the pickup time and hadn't told me until I was already at the school. And she's been hoarding food in the garage. That's not normal behavior. "Michael, we need to protect our assets. This house should be in our names, for Emma's future." "I don't know." "She's dragging us down. Do you know what the Petersons said at dinner last week? They asked if your mother was our live-in help. It was mortifying." The silence stretched out, and I held my breath. "I'll talk to her about signing the house over," Michael finally said. "Make it seem like it's for her own good, tax purposes or something." "And if she refuses?" "She won't. She trusts me." I stood frozen in the dark kitchen, my hand gripping the glass so hard I thought it might shatter. My son, my baby boy whose diapers I'd changed, whose fever I'd sat up with, whose college I'd paid for by working double shifts, was plotting to steal my home. I crept back to the garage, my mind spinning. They thought I was some senile old woman who'd roll over and hand them everything. They thought those cameras and restricted credit cards and exile to the garage had broken me. The next morning, I smiled as I made their breakfast. I nodded when Samantha reminded me about Emma's dance class. I even apologized for buying the wrong brand of dish soap. But while they were at work, I took the bus downtown to the county clerk's office. The deed was exactly where it should be, in my name only. Michael Porter was nowhere on it. I'd never added him, despite his hints over the years. I made copies. Then I went to the bank and opened a new account they didn't know about, transferring what little savings I had left. And finally, I stopped by the office of Harold Bennett, an old colleague from the law firm. "Elaine," he said, his face creasing with concern, "I heard about the layoffs. How are you holding up?" "I need some legal advice," sir, I said, "about property rights and tenant eviction." His eyebrows rose, but he gestured to a chair. "Tell me everything." That night, I served pot roast with a smile. I helped Emma with her puzzles and didn't complain when Samantha criticized how I'd folded the towels. I retired to my garage corner like an obedient dog. But for the first time in weeks, the cold didn't bother me. The flickering fluorescent light didn't seem so harsh, because spread on the futon beside me were photocopies of my deed, printouts of state property laws, and Harold Bennett's business card with his direct line. They wanted to play games with a foolish old woman? They were about to learn that this old woman had spent 25 years in a law office, and I'd been taking notes the whole damn time. Saturday morning arrived with its usual chaos. Emma's cartoons blared from the living room while Samantha made her green smoothie and Michael scrolled through his phone at the breakfast table. I moved around them like a servant, clearing dishes and wiping counters, invisible until needed. "Mom," Michael said without looking up, "Sam and I were thinking we should talk about the house situation." I kept my back to them, scrubbing a pan that was already clean. "What about it?" "Well, with the property taxes and maintenance costs, it might make sense to restructure things, put the deed in our names, for tax purposes." There it was, the opening move in their little chess game. I turned around slowly, channeling every ounce of the confused old lady they thought I was. "I don't understand. How would that help with taxes?" Samantha jumped in, her voice syrupy, sweet. "It's complicated financial stuff, Elaine, but basically, if Michael is the owner on paper, we can claim certain deductions. It would save the family money." The family, as if I wasn't part of it anymore. "I'd need to think about it," I said, letting my voice quaver just a little. "Maybe talk to someone at the bank?" Michael and Samantha exchanged another one of their looks. "Mom, you don't need to bother anyone. We've already consulted with a lawyer friend. It's all standard paperwork." "A lawyer?" I blinked innocently. "Which lawyer?" "Just someone Samantha knows," Michael said quickly. "Look, why don't you think about it over the weekend? We can discuss it more on Monday." I nodded, shuffling back to the sink like the defeated old woman they saw. But inside, my mind was sharp as a blade. Monday, they were giving me a deadline. That afternoon, while they took Emma to her swimming lesson, I called Harold Bennett from my garage phone. The landline they'd forgotten existed. "Elaine, I've reviewed everything you sent me," and he said, "the house is absolutely yours. They have no legal claim to it whatsoever. In fact, as the homeowner, you have the right to ask them to leave at any time." Even though they're family? Even then, they're essentially tenants without a lease. You could give them 30 days' notice, or less if you can prove hostile living conditions. Hostile living conditions? I looked around my garage prison and almost laughed. "Harold, I need to document everything before I make a move. What should I be recording?" "Everything. Conversations, living conditions, any attempts at financial coercion. Do you have access to a recording device?" I thought of the smartphone Michael had grudgingly bought me last Christmas. The one they assumed I barely knew how to use. I do. Good. And Elaine? Be careful. People can become unpredictable when property is involved. That evening, I started my documentation. I took photos of the garage corner where I slept, the single outlet I was allowed to use, the bucket I kept for when they locked the house at night and I couldn't get to the bathroom until morning. I recorded the temperature 48 degrees, even with the space heater running. Sunday brought more pressure. Samantha left printouts on the kitchen counter articles about elderly people who'd simplified their lives by transferring assets to their children. Michael mentioned how his friend's mother had done the smart thing and moved to a senior community after signing her house over. Those places are expensive, I said, playing along. Not all of them, Samantha chimed in. I found some very affordable options. Medicaid covers a lot if you don't have assets. If you don't have assets, they weren't just trying to steal my house. They were planning to strip me of everything and dump me in some state-run facility. That night, I recorded everything on my phone, the date, the time. The conversation recalled word for word. I also documented finding my mail had been redirected to Michael's home office. Bills, bank statements, even a letter from my sister in Florida, all of it filtered through their hands first. Monday morning came too soon. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Michael came downstairs at 6:15 a.m., dressed for work but clearly on a mission. So, Mom, about that paperwork. I'm still thinking, I said, my hands trembling genuinely now, but from anger, not fear. What's there to think about? His voice had an edge. We're offering to take care of everything for you, the taxes, the maintenance, all of it. You never have to worry again. It's a big decision, Michael. This house has been mine for over 30 years. And you've done a great job with it, Samantha said, appearing in the doorway like a bad penny. But it's time to be realistic about your situation. You're unemployed. You have no income. How long do you think your savings will last? Longer than you think. I thought, remembering the new bank account they didn't know about. Just sign the papers, Elaine, she continued. Michael's printer is all set up in his office. We can have this done before breakfast. I said I need to think about it. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Michael's jaw clenched. How much more time do you need? I don't know. Maybe I should talk to Harold Bennett at the firm. He always handled the real estate matters. You're not calling Harold fucking Bennett, Michael exploded, then caught himself. I mean, there's no need to bother him. This is family business. I stared at my son, red-faced, fists clenched, looking nothing like the boy I'd raised. Don't curse at me, Michael. I'll curse if I damn well want to. This is my house. No, I said quietly. It's not. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma called from upstairs, breaking the spell, and Samantha went to tend to her. Michael grabbed his coffee and briefcase. We'll discuss this tonight, he said coldly. And Mom, start thinking about what's best for everyone, not just yourself. After they left, I sat in my garage corner and played back the recording on my phone. His raised voice, the cursing, the claim that it was his house, all of it crystal clear. I pulled out Harold's card and the deed to my house. They wanted to play hardball? They had no idea who they were dealing with. I'd survived a divorce, raised a child alone, and worked my way up from nothing. I'd be damned if I'd let them bury me before I was dead. It was time to show them exactly whose house this was. Tuesday morning, I took 3 buses to get to Harold Bennett's office downtown. The receptionist, a young woman who probably made more than I ever did, looked at me with barely concealed pity. My garage-wrinkled clothes and tired face told a story I couldn't hide. Mrs. Porter, Harold said, rising from behind his mahogany desk. Please, sit down. Would you like some coffee? Real coffee, not the store-brand swill I'd been drinking. Yes, please. He poured from a silver carafe, and I nearly wept at the rich aroma. Such a small thing. Yet it reminded me of the person I used to be. I've reviewed all the documents you sent, he said, settling back in his leather chair. The house is unquestionably yours. The deed is clear, and there's no lien or encumbrance. tell me about this situation with your son." I pulled out my phone and played him the recordings. His face grew darker with each one, especially when he heard Michael's explosion about it being his house. "This is financial elder abuse," Harold said flatly. "They're attempting to coerce you into signing over your property. The living conditions they've subjected you to constitute a hostile environment. And this—" He held up a paper I'd given him. "This is very interesting." It was the bank statement I'd managed to intercept, showing a $15,000 withdrawal from my savings account, one I hadn't made. "The signature," I said. "It's not mine." Harold studied it with a magnifying glass. "No, it's not. It's a decent forgery, but I can see the differences. Do you want to press charges?" Did I? My own son? Potentially going to jail? But then I thought of the garage, the cameras, the way they discussed me like I was already dead. "Not yet," I said. "I want them out of my house first. Can we do that legally?" "Absolutely. As the homeowner, you can serve them with a notice to vacate. Given the hostile environment and the attempted financial coercion, we could argue for an expedited eviction. I can have the papers drawn up today." "How long would they have?" "Typically 30 days, but given the circumstances, we could push for 7 to 10 days. 7 days. After 5 years of them living in my house, they'd have 7 days to get out." "Do it," I said. Harold nodded and made some notes. "Elaine, I should warn you, this could get ugly. They might try to claim tenant rights, argue that they've been paying rent or maintaining the property." "They haven't paid a dime. I have all the utility bills in my name, the property tax receipts, everything." "Good. Document everything from this point forward, and—" He hesitated. "You might want to secure any valuables. People can do desperate things when they're being evicted." I thought of my mother's jewelry, hidden in a shoebox in the garage, my important papers. Thank God, were in a safety deposit box they didn't know about. That afternoon, I returned home to find Samantha's car in the driveway. She rarely came home for lunch. My skin prickled with warning as I entered through the garage. She was in Michael's office, papers spread across the desk. When she saw me, she didn't even try to hide what she was doing. "Looking for something?" I asked. "The deed," she said bluntly. "Where is it, Elaine?" "Somewhere safe." She stood up, and for the first time, I saw real ugliness in her pretty face. "You stupid old woman. Do you think you're being clever? We know you went downtown today. The neighbors saw you waiting for the bus." "I had errands." "Errands," she laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "You went to see a lawyer, didn't you? Well, two can play that game. My cousin says that given your age and recent instability, it wouldn't be hard to have you declared incompetent." "Instability?" "Hoarding food, forgetting to pick up Emma, living in squalor in the garage by choice." "By choice?" The words erupted from me. "You forced me out there." "Did we?" She smiled coldly. "Because I remember you volunteering to give Emma your room. Very generous of you, although concerning. Given your financial situation, a rational person would have kept the room and found other arrangements for their grandchild." I stared at her, finally understanding the depth of their planning. Every move had been calculated to make me look unstable, incapable. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Get out, now." She gathered the papers slowly, deliberately. "This isn't over, Elaine. And when Michael hears about this, tell him. Tell him his mother is finally standing up for herself." She left, slamming doors on her way out. I went to the garage and called Harold. "They're escalating." I told him, "How soon can you have those eviction papers ready?" "I can file them tomorrow morning. Elaine, do you have somewhere safe to stay? I don't like the sound of this." I looked around my garage corner. I'll be fine. I've survived this long. That evening, dinner was a silent war. Michael came home already briefed by Samantha, his face dark with anger. Emma, sensing the tension, whined and pushed her food around. "Grandma Laney," she said suddenly, "why don't you sleep inside anymore?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. "Eat your vegetables, Emma," Samantha snapped. "But why?" "Because Grandma likes the garage," Michael said, his eyes never leaving my face. "Don't you— Mom, you chose to sleep out there." "Yes," I said, meeting his stare. "I chose a lot of things. And now I'm choosing something else." After dinner, I retreated to my corner and began packing what little I had: my clothes, my photos, my mother's quilt. Tomorrow, a herald would file the papers. Tomorrow, the war would truly begin. But tonight, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I smiled, because for the first time since that pink slip arrived, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a homeowner, and it was time everyone remembered that. Wednesday evening arrived like a storm. I'd spent the day at the bank, gathering evidence of the forged check. The manager, Mrs. Davidson, had been horrified when I showed her the signature discrepancies. "This is serious fraud, Mrs. Porter," she'd said. "We need to file a report immediately." "I'm handling it through my attorney first," I told her, "but I need all the documentation you can provide." She'd given me everything security footage of Samantha at the teller window, copies of the forged check, transaction records. The evidence was damning. I returned home at 4:30 p.m. to find Michael's car already in the driveway. Strange, since he never left work before 6. My stomach tightened as I entered through the garage. They were waiting in the kitchen like an ambush. Michael stood by the window, arms crossed. Samantha sat at the table with a manila folder in front of her. "We need to talk," Michael said without preamble. I set down my purse, noting how Samantha's eyes tracked it. Did they know where I'd been? "I'm listening," I said. Samantha opened the folder and pulled out a document. "This is a power of attorney form. Sign it and we'll handle all your financial decisions from here on. It's for your own protection." I almost laughed at the audacity. My protection? "Mom," Michael's voice was strained, "you're obviously struggling, living in the garage, hoarding food, making unnecessary trips downtown. We're trying to help you." "By stealing my house?" "Nobody's stealing anything." He slammed his hand on the counter, making me jump. "We're trying to take care of you, and you're being paranoid and difficult." I pulled out my phone and set it on the counter, making sure the recording app was visible. "Say that again, Michael. Tell me how you're taking care of me." His face went pale when he saw the phone. Are you recording this?" "Oh, every word. Just like I recorded Monday's conversation, and last Thursday's, and the one where Samantha discussed having me declared incompetent." Samantha stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You conniving old bitch!" "Language, Samantha. Your daughter might hear you." "Don't you dare bring Emma into this." "Why not? You've used her as an excuse to push me out of my own home. Tell me, what kind of parents teach their child that it's okay to treat family like garbage?" Michael stepped between us. "Mom, stop. Just sign the papers. We'll forget all this happened." "I have a better idea," I said, reaching into my purse. I pulled out the bank documents and laid them on the table. "Why don't you explain this $15,000 withdrawal from my account?" The silence was deafening. Samantha's face cycled through emotions: surprise, anger, then calculated coolness. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Really? Because the bank has security footage of you at the teller window, and this signature." I pointed to the forged check. "This isn't mine." Michael stared at the papers, then at his wife. "Sam? What is she talking about?" "She's lying," Samantha said quickly, "or confused. You know how she's been lately." "The bank doesn't lie," I said, "and neither does video footage." Michael picked up the check copy. Studying it, I saw the moment he recognized the signature style. Samantha had a distinctive way of making capital letters. "Sam," he said slowly, "tell me you didn't." "We needed the money," she exploded. "For Emma's school, for the house repairs, for your shopping sprees," I interrupted. "For your spa days and designer bags. I may sleep in the garage, but I'm not blind." Michael sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "Jesus Christ, Sam. That's fraud. That's a felony. She wasn't supposed to notice. The old bat never checks her statements anyway. The old bat, I said coldly, checks everything, and the old bat is pressing charges. You wouldn't. Samantha's voice was sharp with panic. I'm Emma's mother. You wouldn't do that to your granddaughter. You did it to yourselves. I said, you stole from me. You imprisoned me in my own home. You tried to take everything I've worked for. What did you expect would happen? Michael looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw my little boy again, scared, caught, realizing the magnitude of his mistakes. Mom, he whispered, please, we can work this out. Yes, we can, I said. You have 7 days to leave my house, both of you. What? Samantha shrieked. You can't evict us. We have rights. Yo, you have no lease. You pay no rent. You're guests who've overstayed their welcome. I picked up my phone, and if you'd like to contest it, I have recordings of you admitting to fraud, plus evidence of elder abuse. Your choice. This is our home, Michael shouted. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You should have thought of that before you locked me out of the house at night, before you put cameras up to monitor me like a prisoner, before you tried to steal my home. I gathered the bank documents and headed for the garage. At the doorway, I turned back to see them. My son with his head in his hands, his wife pacing like a caged animal. 7 days, I repeated. Starting tomorrow when you're served with the official notice, I suggest you start packing. I closed the door on their shouting and walked to my corner of the garage. But this time, the cold concrete didn't bother me. The flickering light didn't depress me. Because in 7 days, I'd be sleeping in my own bedroom again, in my own house, and they'd be someone else's problem. I pulled out Harold's business card and sent him a text. They know. Proceed with eviction immediately and add criminal charges for the fraud. His response came quickly. On it, stay safe, Elaine. Safe. I looked around my garage prison and smiled grimly. I'd survived this long. 7 more days would be nothing. The next 3 days were psychological warfare. Michael and Samantha alternated between fury and manipulation, trying every tactic in their arsenal. Thursday morning, Samantha played the Emma card. She's been crying all night, she said, holding my granddaughter's hand at breakfast. She doesn't understand why Grandma Laney wants us to leave. Emma's eyes were red-rimmed, but I knew Samantha's tricks. A little water on the lashes, some strategic pinching to make them puffy. I don't want to leave, Grandma, Emma said in a small voice. Did I do something bad? My heart cracked, but I stayed strong. No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups need different houses, that's all. But why? Ask your parents, I said, looking directly at Samantha. Friday brought Michael's attempt at reconciliation. He came to the garage at 11:30 p.m., knocking softly on the side door. Mom, can we talk? I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He stood there in his pajamas, looking haggard. I'm sorry, he said, about everything, the garage, the way we've treated you. I know we've been horrible. I waited. Apologies were easy. Actions were what mattered. If you drop the charges against Sam, we'll leave quietly. No fighting the eviction. We'll be gone by Tuesday. And the house? It's yours. It was always yours. I was wrong to try to take it. For a moment, I wanted to believe him. This was my son, after all. The boy I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for. What about the money she stole? He shifted uncomfortably. We'll pay it back. Maybe a payment plan? With what money, Michael? You've been living here rent-free for 5 years. You drive a BMW while I take the bus. Where exactly is this repayment coming from? His facade cracked. Christ, Mom, she's my wife, the mother of my child. You want me to let her go to jail? I want you to take responsibility. Both of you. Fine, he spat. But when Emma grows up without her mother because you were vindictive, remember this moment. He stormed back to the house, slamming doors on his way. I sat on my futon, shaking. Was I being vindictive, or was I finally standing up for myself? Saturday morning, I woke to strange noises above, furniture moving, drawers slamming. When I went inside to make coffee, I found chaos. Boxes everywhere. Samantha throwing things into them with violent efficiency. "Taking inventory?" I asked. She whirled around, "Making sure we don't leave anything for you to steal." "Steal?" I laughed bitterly. "That's rich coming from you." "You know what your problem is, Elaine. You're jealous. Jealous that Michael chose me, that we have a life, that we're young and you're just a dried-up old woman with nothing." "I have my house," I said calmly, "and my dignity. Can you say the same?" She threw a plate against the wall, shattering it. Emma started crying from the living room. "Look what you made me do," Samantha screamed. "You're destroying this family." I pulled out my phone and photographed the broken plate, the chaos, her wild expression, more evidence for Harold. Sunday was the calm before the storm. They'd clearly consulted a lawyer because suddenly they were documenting everything too. Michael took pictures of the garage, trying to make it look like I'd chosen to live there. Samantha recorded me making breakfast, narrating about my mental decline when I forgot to turn off the stove immediately. "Two can play at this game," she hissed when I passed her in the hallway. But their lawyer must have told them the truth. They had no case, no lease, no rent receipts, no proof of any agreement. Plus, I had the fraud evidence hanging over their heads like a sword. Monday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Michael answered it, and I heard the process server's clear voice. "Michael Porter, you're being served with a notice to vacate. You have 7 days to remove yourself and your belongings from the premises." "This is bullshit!" Michael shouted, but the server was already walking away. I came in from the garage to find him holding the papers, his face purple with rage. Samantha snatched them from his hands, scanning frantically. "She can't do this," she muttered. "We have rights, squatters' rights or something." "We're not squatters," Michael said heavily. "We're guests, and our welcome just expired." They spent the day making phone calls to lawyers, to real estate agents, to family members. I heard Samantha on the phone with her mother, spinning a tale of how I'd lost my mind and thrown them out for no reason. "She lives in the garage by choice," no, she insisted. "We've been taking care of her." But even her mother seemed skeptical. I heard her ask why they didn't have their names on the deed after 5 years of living there. That evening, I ordered Chinese food delivered to the garage, a small celebration of my impending freedom. As I ate my orange chicken, I made my own calls, a locksmith, scheduled for next Tuesday, a cleaning service, to decontaminate my bedroom after years of their occupation, a real estate agent, because I'd decided Harold was right. Too many memories in this house now. At 10 p.m., Michael knocked on the garage door again. "Mom, please. One more chance. We'll get our own place, but we need time. Emma's in school. We need to find something in the district." "You had 5 years to plan for your own place," I said through the door. "You chose to plan how to steal mine instead." "I'm your son," he shouted. "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything," I said quietly, "until you forgot I was your mother." I heard his footsteps retreat, then return. Something slid under the door. A photograph. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was from his college graduation. Both of us smiling, his arm around me, my face glowing with pride. I stared at it for a long time, remembering that day, how proud I'd been, how I'd thought all the sacrifice was worth it to see him succeed. Then I turned it over. On the back, in his handwriting, "You're destroying your family. Hope the house is worth it." I placed the photo in my box of important papers. Evidence, I told myself. But really, it was a reminder of what I'd lost long before any eviction notice was served. They'd destroyed our family the day they locked me out in the cold. I was just finally admitting it. Tuesday arrived with an oppressive heat that made the garage feel like an oven by 7 a.m., but I didn't care. Today was the day. The locksmith was scheduled for noon, right after the eviction deadline. I made my coffee and sat outside on the front steps. My front steps, for the first time in months. Chen from next door was watering her roses and waved tentatively. She'd watched my decline from homeowner to garage dweller with careful silence. "Morning. Elaine, you're up early." "Big day today," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. At 9 a.m., a moving truck pulled up. Michael and Samantha had actually hired movers. I watched from the kitchen window as they directed the men, Samantha pointing imperiously at furniture that had been mine before they'd claimed it. "The leather sectional goes," she told the lead mover, "and the dining set, and that entertainment center." All items they'd convinced me to buy for the family over the years. I'd let them take it all. Furniture could be replaced. My dignity couldn't. Harold arrived at 10:30 a.m., briefcase in hand and a sheriff's deputy beside him. "Just a precaution," he said quietly, "in case things get heated." They were loading Emma's bed when she saw me through the window and broke away from Samantha to run outside. "Grandma Laney, are you coming with us?" I knelt down to her level. "No, sweetheart, but you can visit me any time your parents allow it." "Mom says you're sick," she whispered. "She says you're confused and mean now." "What do you think?" I asked gently. She studied my face with those serious 4-year-old eyes. "I think you look sad." "I am sad," I admitted, "but sometimes we have to do hard things to take care of ourselves." Samantha appeared in the doorway. "Emma, get back here now!" "Bye, Grandma," Emma said, hugging me quickly before running back. "Don't poison her against me," Samantha hissed, "or I swear—" "You'll what?" Harold stepped forward. "Threaten my client? Please continue. The deputy would love to hear it." She retreated, but not before shooting me a look of pure hatred. By 11:45 a.m., most of their belongings were loaded. Michael emerged from the house carrying a box of what looked like documents. He stopped when he saw me. "The title to my car," he said stiffly, "and other papers from your filing cabinet." "Those stay," Harold said. "Nothing leaves without Mrs. Porter's inspection." "Christ, really? You're going to go through our personal documents?" "Just returning the favor," I said. "You went through mine for years." I examined the box. Tax returns, insurance papers, bank statements, all mixed together with my documents. I pulled out what was mine, including several savings bonds I'd forgotten about, made out to Michael but never given to him. "These are mine," he protested. "Purchased with my money, in my possession, never delivered," Harold said smoothly. "Legally, they remain Mrs. Porter's property." It was petty, perhaps, but watching his face as I reclaimed those bonds gave me a small spark of satisfaction. At 11:55 a.m., Samantha made one last attempt. She changed into a designer dress and done her makeup, looking every inch the successful suburban wife. "Elaine," she said, her voice suddenly warm, "this has all gotten out of hand. Why don't we sit down and talk, like family?" "We are talking," I said, "through lawyers, as you suggested." I was angry. We both said things we didn't mean. She actually managed tears. "Think about Emma. She needs her grandmother." "She needs parents who don't steal and lie," I countered. "Maybe this will teach her that actions have consequences." The facade cracked. "You vindictive old bitch! You'll die alone in this house, and no one will mourn you." "Maybe," I said, "but I'll die in my house, not in a garage." At exactly 12 noon, Harold looked at his watch. "Time's up. Any remaining possessions will be considered abandoned." Michael grabbed the last box from the porch. "We're going, but this isn't over. Mom, the fraud charges are being actively investigated." Harold interrupted. "I suggest you contact a criminal defense attorney, a good one." They climbed into their BMW packed so full the trunk wouldn't close properly. Emma waved from her car seat, and despite everything, I waved back. As they pulled away, Samantha rolled down her window for one last shot. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed your own family." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The locksmith arrived 15 minutes later. I watched him change every lock, install new deadbolts, even add a chain to the garage side door. When he finished, He handed me a set of shiny new keys. "Fresh start, Ma," he said with a smile. "Feels good, doesn't it?" "You have no idea," I told him. After he left, Harold and I did a walkthrough. The house was a disaster. Furniture gone, walls scuffed, Emma's crayon marks on the kitchen wall. But it was mine. "I'll need photos for the insurance claim," Harold said, documenting the damage. "They took items that weren't theirs?" "Let them have it," I said. "I just want this over." We stood in the master bedroom. My bedroom once again. The carpet was stained, the walls needed painting, but I could see past it all. "What now?" Harold asked. "Now I sell," I said firmly. "This house has too many ghosts. I'll get a small condo, something just for me, something without a garage." He smiled. "I know a good realtor. And Elaine, you did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." After he left, I stood in the empty house. The silence was profound. No footsteps above, no muffled television, no voices discussing my fate as if I weren't there. I walked to the garage and looked at my corner. The futon was still there, my mother's quilt folded neatly on top. I gathered it up and carried it inside, up to my bedroom. That night, for the first time in 2 months, I slept in my own bed. The house creaked and settled around me. Familiar sounds I'd missed in the garage, I stared at the ceiling, waiting for regret or sadness to overwhelm me. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. Tomorrow I'd start cleaning, planning, rebuilding, but tonight, I simply existed in my own space, breathing my own air, reclaiming my own life. The family I'd lost had been gone long before any eviction notice. I'd just been too afraid to admit it. Now, with nothing left to lose, I was finally free. 6 weeks later, I stood in my empty living room, watching the afternoon sun stream through windows I'd cleaned myself. The walls were freshly painted, a soft dove gray that made the space feel larger. The scuffed floors had been refinished. Every trace of their occupation had been erased. The realtor, an efficient woman named Patricia, checked her tablet. "The photographer will be here at 2 p.m. The listing goes live tomorrow morning. Based on the comps, we should have multiple offers within the week." "Good," I said. "The sooner, the better." She hesitated. "Are you sure about pricing it below market? We could get more." "I want it sold quickly," I interrupted. "I'm ready to move on." The doorbell rang, and I found a certified letter waiting. The return address was the district attorney's office. I opened it with steady hands. Samantha had been formally charged with forgery and fraud. The trial was set for 3 months out. Michael wasn't charged, but he was listed as a witness for the prosecution. I folded the letter carefully, so he'd made his choice. Save himself by testifying against his wife. Some might call it justice. I just called it typical. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then saw the photo attachment, Emma at a playground, smiling at the camera. The message read, "She asks about you every day. I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. M." I stared at the photo for a long moment, then deleted it. Harold had advised no contact until after the trial. Besides, sorry was just a word. They'd proven that. The moving truck arrived at 3 p.m. Unlike the chaos of their departure, my move was organized, deliberate. Each box labeled, each item carefully wrapped. The furniture I'd chosen to keep was minimal, just enough for a 2-bedroom condo downtown. Walking distance from shops and cafes, no more buses for me. As the movers worked, Chen appeared with a covered dish. "Lasagna," she said simply, "for your first night in the new place." "Thank you," I said, touched by the gesture. She looked around the empty room. "I'm glad you're getting out. This house, it holds too much pain now." "You knew?" I asked. "About the garage?" Her face was sad. "We all knew, Elaine. But what could we say? They were your family." Family. The word had lost its meaning somewhere between the garage floor and the eviction notice. By 5 p.m., the house was empty except for one item, the sold sign I'd had made weeks ago, waiting for this moment. I carried it to the front lawn and pushed it firmly into the grass. It wasn't official yet, but I needed to see it there, needed the closure. A car slowed as it passed, Michael's BMW. I could see his silhouette through the tinted windows. Maybe Samantha beside him. They didn't stop, just crawled by like ghosts of a life I no longer lived. I took one last walk through the house, the master bedroom where I'd slept for 3 decades, the kitchen where I'd taught Michael to cook, the garage, just a garage now, no trace of my exile remaining. Each room held memories, but they felt distant, like scenes from someone else's life. In Emma's old room, I found something they'd left behind, a crayon drawing stuck to the back of the closet wall, a house with stick figures, a little girl, a mom, a dad, and off to the side, a grandma with gray hair. She'd drawn me smiling. I carefully peeled it off the wall and tucked it into my purse. One memory worth keeping. The lockbox went on the door at 6 p.m. Patricia promised to handle all the showings. I wouldn't have to come back, wouldn't have to see strangers walking through rooms where my life had unraveled. The closing will be smooth, she assured me. 60 days max, then you'll have your money and your freedom. Freedom, such a simple word for such a complex thing. I drove to my new condo as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The building was modern, secure, with a doorman who greeted me by name. The elevator worked. The hallways were clean and bright. My unit was on the 3rd floor, high enough to feel safe, low enough to take the stairs if needed. I unlocked the door with keys that were mine alone and stepped into my new life. The space was smaller but filled with light. The kitchen had granite counters and appliances that actually worked. The bedroom windows overlooked a small park where people walked their dogs in the evening. No garage, no basement, no extra rooms for ungrateful guests. I heated Mrs. Chen's lasagna and ate it on my new balcony, watching the city lights flicker on, somewhere out there. Michael and Samantha were probably in some cramped apartment, plotting their next move. Emma was probably asking why they had to leave Grandma's house. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My phone rang. Harold's name appeared on the screen. "Elaine, I wanted you to know. Samantha's lawyer contacted me. She wants to make a deal. Plead guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for no jail time. What do you think?" "It's not my call, but restitution would be guaranteed. You'd get your money back." "All of it?" "With interest." I considered this. "Take the deal. I don't want Emma visiting her mother in prison. The money is enough." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. I've already won what matters." After we hung up, I unpacked my mother's quilt and spread it on my new bed. The fabric was soft with age, each square a memory of better times. I'd thought about leaving it behind, but some things were worth carrying forward. My last box contained the papers from the safety deposit box, the deed to the house, insurance policies, the bonds Michael had wanted, and at the bottom, that photo from his graduation. I looked at it one more time, then placed it in a drawer. Someday, maybe, I'd be able to look at it without anger, but not today. At 10 p.m., I made a cup of tea, the good kind, not the cheap stuff, and stood at my window. The city hummed with life below, couples walking hand in hand, friends laughing outside the wine bar, normal people living normal lives. For the first time in months, I felt like one of them. My phone buzzed, another unknown number. This time, just text. "The house sold? Already? That was our home." I blocked the number without responding. Then I did something I should have done weeks ago. I changed my phone number entirely. Clean slate. The new condo was quiet, but it was a different quiet than the garage. This was the quiet of peace, of choosing solitude rather than having it forced upon me. I controlled the thermostat. I decided when to lock the doors. I chose who to let into my life. Tomorrow, I'd start my job search. At 68, it wouldn't be easy, but I had skills, experience, and now I had freedom. Maybe a small firm that valued wisdom over youth. Maybe something completely different. The choice was mine. I thought about Michael's accusation that I destroyed our family for a house. He was wrong. The family was destroyed the moment they saw me as an obstacle rather than a person. The house was just property. What I'd fought for was my dignity. As I prepared for bed in my new home, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd been handed a pink slip all those weeks ago. That woman was gone, along with the garage, the house, and the illusion of family. This woman was older, certainly. Tired from the battle, but she stood straighter. Her eyes were clearer. She owned her life in a way she hadn't in years. For the first time in years, I said to my reflection, I'm home. And I was, not in a building or a room or a structure made of walls and doors. I was home in my own skin, in my own choices, in my own future. The garage was gone. The house would soon belong to strangers. But I had something no one could take away, the knowledge that when pushed to the ground, I'd found the strength to stand back up. And I'd never let anyone push me down again. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts on Elaine's journey. Did she do the right thing? What would you have done in her place? Your perspectives mean everything to me.